Hi everyone, I'm Xiao Yu from Susan's family. Today I'd like to introduce you to a new design. The Forbidden City series Palace Garden Motif Pillow Blanket. This blanket is divided into diagonal sections, Intarsia sections, motif sections, edging sections, and decorations. There are two versions of the blanket, and each version has different decorative elements. The rest of the sections use identical crochet techniques. When you reach the decoration section, we will explain each part separately. We'll follow the order of crocheting the diagonal sections, Intarsia sections, and motif sections. After completing them, sew them together. Then crochet the edging sections and decorations individually. Finally, attach the decorations to their corresponding positions. Now let's start learning how to crochet the diagonal sections. This includes the fabric piece and the edging. The fabric piece is crocheted using the diagonal method. Work back and forth in rows. It's divided into an increasing section and a decreasing section. In the middle, continuously join new yarn and change colors to create the corresponding pattern. The patterns and color schemes vary for different styles here, but the crochet technique remains the same. When crocheting, pay attention and refer to the chart for each style. The stitch techniques used include chain stitches, double crochets, and slip stitches. Now, let's show. For convenient watching, I'll use thicker yarn for the demonstration here. Colors are random. For specific yarn, color schemes, and hook sizes, please refer to the detail page of our product and the paper instructions. First, start with a foundation chain of 3 stitches. Then move on to the first row. Start with 3 chain stitches. Begin from the 4th stitch counting back. Pick up 1 strand on the top of the chains, and work 3 double crochets sequentially. Here, treat these 3 chain stitches and the 3 double crochets as one pattern cluster. There is only one cluster in the first row. The first row is now complete. Move down to the second row. Start again with 3 chain stitches. For working back and forth, you need to flip the fabric. Turn counterclockwise. Then pick up these 3 chains and work one pattern cluster. Start with 3 chain stitches as your turning chain. At this point, the back of the chain is facing you. Pick the corresponding highest position of the half stitch, which is the strand above the raised horizontal bar. Work 3 double crochets, matching each one to its corresponding spot. If you're unsure about the position, you can also count from the front of the chain. Once you're done, one motif is completed. Insert your hook downward into the first cluster. This is the starting point. Next to it, there's a large gap. Right here. Insert your hook into the large gap, and crochet 1 slip stitch. Continue crocheting another motif here. Chain 3 to start. Pick up the same hole, crochet 3 double crochets. You will have crocheted 2 motifs in this row. That completes the second row. Now move on to the third row. Start by crocheting 3 chains. Then turn over. Pick up the position of these 3 chain stitches. Crochet 1 motif here. Similarly, the back loop of the chain stitch should face you. Insert your hook into the highest half loop and crochet. After completing it, pick up the adjacent motif, in the gap between the chain and the double crochet, which is the hole next to the beginning chain. Make a slip stitch. Then pick up the same hole, and crochet 1 motif. After completing it, continue by picking up the gap of the adjacent motif, and make a slip stitch. Then crochet 1 motif here. The third row is now complete. You will have crocheted 3 motifs in this row. You can see that the texture of this row corresponds to the first row. This is the right side of the piece. The double crochet texture is relatively neat. When distinguishing the right and wrong sides later, you can refer to the texture. At the same time, the yarn tail for the starting chain should be located at the bottom right corner. Next, we'll work on the fourth row. The method is the same as before. Start with a beginning chain. Then work a motif. After completing it, pick up the gap of the adjacent motif and slip stitch. Continue to work the second motif. Correspondingly work the motifs for the following positions. Transition between motifs with 1 slip stitch. Continue crocheting downward. Finish crocheting the last motif. The fourth row is now completed. This row consists of 4 motifs. Follow the chart as you move forward. Continue crocheting the remaining increasing section. That concludes the explanation of the increasing section. Next, I'll explain a few situations you might encounter while crocheting the piece. Below, I will explain and demonstrate using a sample swatch. I'll first explain how to join new yarn. There are two scenarios. I'll start with the first one. Joining new yarn at the beginning of a row. Please watch the demonstration. After completing the last stitch of the edge pattern in the previous row, enlarge the loop. Pass the fabric piece through the loop. Take the new yarn. Make a slip knot. Insert the hook into this double crochet stitch on the edge. Draw the yarn through. Adjust the loop size. Chain 3 with the new yarn. Then turn the work. Start crocheting the pattern. That concludes how to change colors at the edge. Next, I will explain the second method of adding new yarn within a row. Please watch me demonstrate. Place the working yarn to the wrong side of the entire piece. Take the new yarn. Make a knot. Insert the hook into the gap. Draw the yarn through. Place the yarn tail for joining on the wrong side. Then crochet one pattern. While crocheting the cluster, you can wrap the yarn tail for joining around the work. That concludes how to join new yarn within a row. Next, I will demonstrate changing colors in adjacent groups. There are two situations where you need to leave yarn tails. Let me explain the first situation. When working on a color block that is adjacent to another, either above or on the left side, and you need to use the same color yarn, please see my demonstration. After completing this color block, don't cut the yarn. When crocheting the next row, simply pull the yarn over and crochet the pattern. Keep the working yarn on the wrong side of the fabric. Slightly tighten the previous yarn. Make sure the pulled yarn is not too tight. This strand of yarn that you pull over, when crocheting the next pattern, weave it into the stitches. That concludes the first situation. Now, let's move on to the second situation. The yarn color won't be used around this color block, but it will be used one pattern group apart on the lower left. Or on the upper left. So we can just pull the yarn over and crochet. That's the end of the second situation. Now you know how to leave yarn tails when changing colors in adjacent groups. Next, I'll explain how to change colors without leaving yarn tails in adjacent groups. If the color isn't used around this color block, but will be used two pattern groups apart on the lower left, or more, we can leave the yarn at 15 centimeters. Then cut it off. When crocheting the pattern, we can rejoin the yarn. Now I'll demonstrate how to hide the yarn tail after breaking the yarn. For the color change section, first pull the tail. From the chain stitch above. And draw it through. Slightly tighten it. This is equivalent to tying a knot. The remaining yarn tail is hidden on the wrong side of the fabric. Make sure to weave in the ends for a few more stitches. If you want it to be more secure, take the tail end and divide it into two parts. Hook one part out from an adjacent position. Tie the two tails into a double knot. Then hide all the remaining strands together inside the fabric. Weave in the ends for a few more stitches. All other yarn tails, except for the starting tail, should be woven into the fabric separately. For the joining yarn tails, continue weaving them in a bit more on the inside of the fabric. That concludes how to change colors in adjacent patterns without leaving yarn tails. Next, I'll explain what to do when using the same color block in one row but at a distance, meaning there are two or more patterns in between. To make crocheting easier, you can join a new yarn in one of those sections. A ball of yarn will have two ends. There will be one yarn tail on the surface and one at the center. When you encounter a color with only one ball of yarn, use the other end to join the yarn. For colors with multiple balls of yarn, you can join a new yarn from another ball. If the same color block has more than two areas, and there aren't enough yarn balls to allocate, you can create small yarn balls for hooking smaller sections. Let's now learn how to make a small yarn ball. Here, I'll teach you the figure 8 wrapping method. Let's start wrapping the small yarn ball. There are two situations. One is taking yarn from an independent ball. To wrap it, The other is when the yarn is still attached to the fabric. Regardless of which situation, the wrapping method is the same. First, leave a tail of about 10 centimeters. You can also make it slightly longer if you prefer. This tail, it will be the tail you pull out later. Place it like this at the base of your left thumb. Pinch it with your thumb. Then wrap the yarn in a figure 8 around your hand. If the yarn is still attached to the fabric while wrapping the small ball, just wrap it like this. Pay attention that one end of the yarn is still connected to the fabric piece, making it convenient to pull the yarn out when needed. When wrapping, keep the tension moderate, not too loose or too tight. The more stitches there are for one color block, the larger the yarn ball will be. The fewer stitches there are for a color block, the smaller you can make the yarn ball. If you run out of yarn later, just join a new yarn and keep crocheting. After roughly winding to your desired size, leave a tail, then cut it off. Then tie a knot like this. You can secure it by wrapping a few times around the middle first. If the yarn is smoother, you can tie a few more knots. If the yarn tail here is too long, you can trim it slightly shorter. This is the method for winding a small yarn ball. When you use it, just gently pull out the yarn like this. The advantage of winding a small yarn ball is that when crocheting, the yarn is relatively secured in place, so the yarn ball won't slip off. When you have a lot of yarn balls, they are less likely to get tangled with each other. This makes crocheting more convenient. If you've reached the ending of a small yarn ball, and it becomes a bit loose, you can take it apart and wind it again. Or, if you make a mistake while crocheting halfway through, and unravel a lot of yarn, you can also use that section of unraveled yarn. Additionally, wind it into a small yarn ball. Here, this is the end connected to the fabric piece. After winding, secure it with some yarn. That's all you need to do. Next, you can decide based on the situation, and prepare the small yarn balls needed for crocheting. Now for the decreasing section. The method is similar to the even section. Just remember that both diagonal ends need to decrease the pattern groups here. Start by making 3 beginning chains. Turn over. Slip stitch into the corresponding pattern below. Then crochet 1 pattern group. Continue working the corresponding patterns afterward. Keep going all the way until you reach the point where you finish crocheting the inner side of the last pattern group. Do not continue crocheting after that. Proceed with a slip stitch instead. This way, both the beginning and end are missing 1 pattern group. That concludes the explanation for this row. Move on to the next row. Use the same method. Start with 3 chain stitches as the beginning chains. After turning, slip stitch into the corresponding pattern below. Then crochet 1 pattern group. Continue working each pattern group in sequence. Finish crocheting the inner side of the last pattern group. That completes this row. From now on, just follow the method used in the first 2 rows. Continue crocheting. Keep going until you finish the last row. When finished, there will only be 1 pattern group in the final row. After completing it, slip stitch into the adjacent pattern group to secure. Then crochet 3 chain stitches. Turn over. Slip stitch into the pattern below. Once completed, you need to fasten off the yarn. Start with 1 chain stitch to secure. Leave a little yarn tail. Break the yarn. Pull tight. Hide the yarn tail on the wrong side of the fabric. You can weave in the ends a few more times for security. That concludes the explanation of the decreasing section. This completes the explanation of the crochet method for the fabric piece. Next, let's learn how to crochet the edging for the piece. It involves crocheting in rounds around the finished fabric. The new stitch technique used is the DC4 popcorn stitch. Please watch as I demonstrate. Here, I'll use a small sample to demonstrate the crochet technique. First, take the required yarn. Make a slip knot. Join the yarn in the chain space at the top right corner of the right side of the fabric. Then make 3 chains as the beginning chain. This counts as 1 double crochet. Continue by making 2 more double crochets in the same chain space. This way, you will have made 3 double crochets in the chain space. Move down to the next chain space along the edge. Make 3 double crochets in each chain space. That is, work 3 double crochets in every row. Keep going until you finish this side of the fabric piece. After completing it, make 2 chains for the corner position. Then continue using the same method. Work on this side of the crochet piece. Take a look. The fabric piece is a square shape. For the first round of edging, you will work along each side of the square. Follow the pattern of making 3 double crochets in each row. When you reach the corner position, work 2 chains for the transition. After that, you'll encounter another side with double crochets. Pick up the entire edge and crochet 3 double crochets. When you reach the insertion point for the double crochets, correspondingly make 3 double crochets in each stitch. Again, match each row with 3 double crochets. Continue following the pattern and refer to the chart. Finish the first round. As you crochet, be mindful to check the stitch count. Now, when you reach the last 2 chains before the corner position, work 1 chain first. Then, on the turning chain, pick up the 2 loops of the standing stitch and make 1 single crochet. This will replace the remaining 1 chain. Join the beginning and ending of the round. That completes the first round. Move on to the second round. Make 3 chains for the starting chain. Continue at the chain space of the corner. Work 1 double crochet. After completing it, work double crochets evenly into each stitch. Keep working until you reach just before the DC4 popcorn stitch. Only 1 stitch remains. Now you have reached the corresponding position. Note that this is a sample for demonstration purposes. The stitch count here is not for reference. For the exact stitch count, please refer to the chart. Work another double crochet, then switch colors. After changing the yarn, work a DC4 popcorn stitch. First, on the left side of the stitch, make 4 double crochets. Wrap the yarn tail while working. After completing them, stretch the loop. Insert the hook into the first double crochet and pull through a loop. Tighten. Secure the loop and switch colors. Crochet 1 chain to secure. The chain above forms the stitch of this popcorn. This is the stitch for the popcorn stitch. Continue crocheting double crochets and DC4 popcorn stitches downward. While crocheting the double crochets, keep wrapping the yarn tail from the popcorn stitch. Change colors every time you reach a popcorn stitch. The securing chain for the popcorn stitch. Switch colors and crochet. Between every 2 popcorn stitches, there is an interval of 10 double crochets. Follow this pattern, continuing all the way to the corner position. Now you've reached the corner with 2 chains. Crochet 2 double crochets and 2 chains on top of it. Consider the completed section as one group. Repeat this group's pattern to finish the entire round. Pay attention to the first 2 stitches of each group. Continue crocheting in the current chain space. After completing, pick up the 2 loops at the top of the beginning chain. Crochet 1 slip stitch. Pull it tight. Then crochet 1 chain to secure. Leave a yarn tail and fasten off. The other yarn has been carried for a distance. You can cut it directly. This completes the edging. With this, the diagonal section is now finished. Next, let's look at the Intarsia section. There are 4 identical sections in this Intarsia part. They are crocheted on the 4 edges of the diagonal section. It is divided into the fabric piece and the edging. When crocheting the fabric piece, you need to switch colors as you crochet to form the pattern. Pay attention to always crochet from right to left. The patterns and color schemes vary depending on the colorway, but the technique is the same. When crocheting, make sure to refer to the charts for your specific colorway. The new stitch technique used here is the SC2 tog. Let's start by crocheting row 1. Since the fabric piece requires color changes while crocheting, you can follow the Intarsia pattern to crochet. Use the stitch diagram as a reference. Find the edge of the square shape. Start with 1 chain on the right side. Pick up the back loop of the chain stitch braid to join the yarn. Take a look at the chains and stitches. They all have this shape with 2 strands like this. The strand closer to us is the front loop. The other strand is the back loop. Here, pick up the back loop to join the yarn. Then make 1 beginning chain. This will serve as the turning chain for the single crochet. Note that this turning chain does not count as a stitch. Below, work single crochets into the corresponding back loops of the stitches and chains. While crocheting, place the yarn tail above the hook to secure it together. Find the position of the beginning chain on the left side. Insert the hook into the spot where the slip stitch was made and continue crocheting. There is 1 strand remaining from the left side chain. This counts as the front loop of the beginning chain. When you reach the popcorn stitch, work into the back loop of the securing slip stitch above. Continue crocheting like this until you reach the color change position. Now you are at the stitch right before the color change. First, make an incomplete single crochet. Insert the hook and draw the yarn through. The incomplete single crochet is now complete. Then, take the new yarn. Yarn over and draw the yarn through. This completes the single crochet, and the color change is also complete. For all subsequent single crochets with color changes, refer to this demonstration. Continue crocheting downward. You will need this strand later. Place it above the hook and carry it along as you crochet. Let me explain here. To keep the fabric piece flat, when crocheting, try to carry 1 or 2 strands of yarn while working. Carry no more than 2 strands at most. If you need to carry more than 2 strands, cut the yarn that is used less frequently, and stop carrying it. Rejoin the yarn when it's needed again. You don't have to wrap the yarn tail when joining a new strand. After the entire piece is completed, pick from the wrong side to weave in the ends. This method helps maintain consistent stitch density. Continue downward according to the Intarsia pattern. Refer to the previous explanation. Complete this row of crochet. After finishing, remember to check the stitch count. This is the sample swatch after completing the first row. Crochet 1 chain stitch to secure. Leave a yarn tail and then cut the yarn. Also cut the strand of yarn you were carrying directly. That completes the first row. Continue with the second row. Start crocheting denser single crochets in this row. The technique for the denser single crochet is almost identical to a regular single crochet. The only difference is the insertion point. Let's start by joining the yarn. Pay attention. Regardless of whether there is a decrease at the beginning of the row, you always join the yarn in the first stitch of the previous row. Join the yarn using the same insertion method as the denser single crochet. Take a look. On the right side, a single crochet looks like a V shape. Insert the hook into the middle of the V shape. Pick up the stitch and the strand of yarn behind it. Draw the yarn through. That's how you join the yarn. Then, make one beginning chain. After completing this, continue crocheting according to the Intarsia pattern. For a neat fabric piece, you can place the next color of yarn that needs to be changed above the crochet hook and carry the yarn together. Find the left single crochet stitch. Insert the hook into the middle of the V. Pick up the stitch and the horizontal strand of yarn behind the stitch. Draw the yarn through. Crochet the single crochet as usual. That completes one tight single crochet stitch. Continue crocheting the tight single crochet stitches. Keep going until there are 2 stitches left in this row. The method for switching colors in this row is identical to the previous row. Refer to the chart and crochet accordingly. Pay attention when crocheting to the point where you reach the position of the yarn tail from the previous row. When you encounter a spot with a yarn tail, try to insert the hook above the yarn tail if possible. This will make the finished work look neater. Continue down to complete this row. As you approach the end of this row, you can place the yarn tail from the previous row also on top of the hook and secure it together. Now, you have 2 stitches left. Next, we will crochet a SC2 tog. First, work 2 incomplete single crochets. Insert the hook and draw the yarn through. 1 incomplete single crochet is done. Work another incomplete single crochet. The SC2 tog is now complete. After that, leave a tail and fasten off the yarn. At this point, the second row is finished. Now, let's move on to the third row. Join the yarn in the first stitch of the previous row. Make one beginning chain. Then, follow the Intarsia pattern, and crochet the dense single crochets. Here, skip the first stitch on the right side without working it. Start crocheting directly from the next stitch. Pay attention to bring the yarn beforehand. Work all the way down to finish this row. The last stitch is a SC2 tog. This is the second incomplete stitch. Pick up the SC2 tog. Insert the hook into the V shape on the right side and crochet. After completing, leave a yarn tail and fasten off. That completes the third row. For the remaining sections ahead, simply follow rows 2 to 3 for reference when crocheting. Keep in mind that, in some row numbers, there may be no decreases at the beginning or end of the row. If there is no decrease at the beginning, start crocheting from the first stitch, where you join the yarn. If there's no decrease at the end, crochet evenly with single crochets to maintain stitch density. Another thing to note is that, when crocheting with carried yarn, carry no more than 2 strands of yarn at a time, to prevent the fabric piece from puckering. After finishing row 10, measure the height of the first 9 rows, and compare it with the dimensions provided in the chart. If the difference is small, you can continue crocheting. If there's a large difference, you need to adjust the tension of your hands, or change the crochet hook size and start over. When you reach the last few rows, after finishing one row, for the yarn on the outer side, don't cut the yarn. Simply enlarge the loop, and pass it through the yarn ball. Then carry the yarn to the position needed for the next row, join the yarn and continue crocheting. Pay attention to the yarn you carried. It should be level with the fabric piece, or slightly looser. Then crochet evenly into each stitch. This will reduce the number of yarn tails. Remember, don't carry more than 2 strands of yarn at once. If it's inconvenient to work this way, you can also fasten off the yarn at the end of each row. Just crochet according to the previous method. Continue as explained earlier. Refer to the chart and complete this fabric piece. That concludes the explanation of the Intarsia sections piece. Next, we'll move on to crocheting the border. Before starting, make sure to finish all the Intarsia sections. Then crochet the edging together. The way to add the border is identical for each piece. It's applied around the Intarsia section, specifically along the sides of its edges. Crochet from right to left. The new stitch technique used is the SC2 in 1. Start with one of the Intarsia fabric pieces. In the first row, join the yarn at the joining position. Make one beginning chain. Continue at the joining spot. Crochet 1 SC2 in 1. That means crocheting 2 single crochets in the same stitch. There you go, the SC2 in 1 is completed. Continue picking up the insertion points along the edges of each row. Crochet 2 single crochets. Then work 1 SC2 in 1. Here, you'll be working with a pattern of 1 SC2 in 1 followed by 2 single crochets, alternate crocheting in this way. Continue following this pattern until you reach the last row of the fabric piece. After completing, remember to check the number of stitches. This will make it convenient for the next part of your crocheting. Once the stitch count is confirmed, on the last row's single crochet stitch, work 1 single crochet, then crochet 1 single crochet in the same single crochet stitch. Again, at the insertion point of the single crochet, crochet 1 single crochet. Continue at the insertion point on the side of each row, alternate crocheting between a short needle increase and 2 short needles. Keep going until you reach the first row. Again, remember to check the number of stitches. You have now completed the edging for one section of the intarsia part. Don't cut the yarn. Move on to work the edging for the remaining parts. This way, you can crochet continuously in rounds to finish the entire circle. After finishing, directly work a slip stitch in the first stitch. This completes the first round. Next, I'll demonstrate the second round using this swatch. This round involves picking up and crocheting the front loops from the first round of edging. Start by crocheting 3 chains, then pick up the front loop of the first stitch and work 1 DC2 in 1. In other words, pick the front loop and crochet 2 double crochets. The DC2 in 1 is now done. After completing it, skip the next 3 stitches on the left. Pick the front loop of the fourth stitch. Work 1 slip stitch. Pull tight. Now consider the finished part as one group. Let's work another group now. Start with 3 chain stitches. Continue by picking up the insertion point of the previous slip stitch. Work 1 DC2 in 1. Then skip the next 3 stitches. On the fourth stitch, work 1 slip stitch. Repeat the pattern for one group downward. Keep crocheting until you reach this corner of the motif piece. Now there is one group left at the corner position. For this group, skip 2 stitches and then work a slip stitch. After completing it, crochet 8 chain stitches. Then skip 1 stitch. Work a slip stitch on the next stitch. After finishing, continue following the pattern for one group. Repeat crocheting as instructed. Keep crocheting all the way through this Intarsia section. Pay attention to the last slip stitch of the group. Crochet into the first stitch on the right side of the next Intarsia section. Now you have completed the edging for one Intarsia section. Continue referring to the previous demonstration. Finish crocheting the remaining part of this round. After completing it, continue with a slip stitch on the first stitch of the first round. Then, leave a tail and fasten off the yarn. That's it for crocheting the edging. The Intarsia section is now complete.